Hey everybody, we're back. The boys, the Pull Up Trey boys. This is a podcast. I'm Samson Folk. This is the podcast I do with my dear friend Trevon. He is the Trey that it's actually midnight. Pulls up. I can't scream right now. I think that would be in bad taste. I just came back from the game against the Nets. I was downtown. I talked to the coaches, the players. I wrote my game piece. I hopped on transit. Now I'm back here. Now
It's
we're
crazy.
recording at midnight. I'm going to be up till like 4 a.m. You're listening to this at like 6 a.m. on the audio side, like 11 a.m. on the video side. Trey, we're running the gauntlet here. How are you feeling?
I've been sitting at my lovely home. You're the one on transit grinding it out. I'm not doing anything here. I'm good. New year, same us. We're
Wow.
ready. Yeah, I know, creative.
So,
Ready to rock out.
yeah.
I think question for you is like on TV. It seemed like this is the loudest the arena's been in like maybe like 45 days. What was it like in there?
That was the loudest I've seen it since Vince, since the
Yeah.
Vince game, and having a big game from Scotty helps. He's the favorite on the team, obviously. Quickly is also really well liked. He had a really fun game. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Scotty and Quickly a lot in this podcast, to be quite frank. Of course, there's always timestamps for anybody who wants. Also, like and subscribe and comment. We remembered. Boop, 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 let's
Boom, boom, boom,
go.
boom,
Yeah,
pow!
yeah, make sure to help the channel that way. Thank you. But yeah, as I'm saying, like it did get loud. And some of that is game ops. They're like, scream if you want a chance at like an Adidas shoe or something, you know? But it was good. It was a fun game of basketball. The Raptors played quote unquote the right way. They undid some of the sins that they've been committing over this just god awful stretch of basketball that they've played. I do want to say quickly though, for anybody who was listening and is invested in like the friendship side of this podcast, the little, banter side of this podcast, I beat the hell out of Trey on that ping
Oh
pong table,
my
man.
god! Oh my god! Two close contested games. I just want to say, at my house, I have a casual paddle and I have a professional paddle.
Oh,
As a host, I said, why not give my friend the professional paddle, the one with balance, control,
you know what?
spin?
Okay, you know what would happen? If you stepped into an F1 car, you couldn't get it on the track, man. You can't handle the professional paddle yet. You're not nice enough. I can handle the professional paddle, dude. You're
You
not
you you ran
ready.
you ran through the house. I'll give you that.
Yeah, Max came over, straight through. So easy. I wish I'd let you know I'd found another means to get home earlier in the day so you could get a little into the eggnog and rum a little earlier. And we could have gone like 4 games straight of me just
Dude,
waxing you. I would have done to you like you did to that mom on the pickleball
a
court, man.
pickleball court.
Yeah. This means you're not the racquetball champion anymore.
I just want to say, like, although we're in a very confined space, like my ankle still has to be factored into the gameplay. I realistically moving from side to side, it's tough.
You know what? I've heard I've heard more about your ankle tonight than I did hear about Scotty's. So I'm glad we're Scott Scotty had the good game. Now he's healthy again, all that good stuff. We can finally like jump over all the hemming and hawing around it. I'm so
Yeah,
glad he found his way back to it. That's where I want to start. Scottie Barnes was really, really good.
sensational.
Like he is, yeah, sensational is a great word for it. 33 points, 13 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and that block was an insane one where, it was Clowney maybe, I can't remember who it was. Like, he seemed scared to go up. He's 14 of 18 from the field. He was 3 of 4 from downtown, including one that he just threw into the basket. A little offensive interference from Ochai Agbaji, but we got the big, good Scottie
Yeah,
Barnes game after he had 6 games coming back from the sprained
yeah.
ankle. Pretty early it seemed, but it's been 3 weeks now since he sprained it, where he was averaging, I think, like maybe 18 points, 6.5 assists, like 5.5 turnovers, and a handful of boards on like sub 50% true shooting. Just like a really tough stretch of games for him where he kept getting the ball and being told, like, please create something.
Mhm.
Now we're looking at him coming back triumphantly. He's breaking out emotes. He's like, I mean, give me the Scottie Barnes lowdown, man. How'd you feel?
I think like today is the vision of what you. I'll speak for myself. Today is like the vision of what you're imagining, like him being a high level player looks like. It's you.
It's
You
so
touched on
easy
it.
for him when it looks this way.
Yeah, you touched on it a little in your tweet. Like him playing as a forward is where he's most empowered and is able to impact the game the most. I think what we saw a lot during the losing streak. It's good to say that. Oh man. Um
11 games in the rear view.
it's just it's irrelevant now, right? It doesn't matter. But
I don't know about all that.
that's the sign of a man who lived through the streak. But him having the ball and like Darko touched on this also, like him having the ball and being forced to be the point guard and point of creation all the time, led to him shooting the ball significantly more than we probably wanted to see. Didn't offer him an opportunity to be the play finisher that he is, and he isn't catching the ball where he's able to utilize his strength. A lot of it is him trying to win with his bursts, and he's not necessarily the quickest guy off first step, so it made things extremely difficult. And the good thing about being in the rebuild and seeing development is that you're gonna get to learn what are the play types we probably don't want to see guys in, and how can we empower them the most. You saw that today with Quickly. There, you can run inverted actions where he's going against another guard. It makes it much harder to switch compared to Jakob Pertl setting the screen quickly, and Gradey just providing shooting gravity also makes things easier for himself as well. And then the fact that he can be a play finisher is the formula that you saw early when he played with Pascal Siakam throughout the first few years. And when he can be a play finisher, those are buckets. He's incredibly strong. He has really good intuition in terms of cutting as well. And like the lob pass that those two had is probably like one of the highlights of this season. And defensively, you already know the impact that he can provide. We've waited 40 games to see this.
It's nice, man. That play you're addressing, like, not only did Scotty end up dunking it from a corner crash in the pick and roll, which is just off ball, big brain, right cut, but earlier in that possession, they tried to get it to Scotty in the mid post on an advantage, and quickly took it out, found his own lane into the middle of the paint, through the lob. Great corner crash from Scotty. Like that type of, I guess, synergy is really what you want to see from probably, you consider the defense that IQ is able to provide, like at his best, the elite version of IQ. Ideally, you want him to be the second best player on this Raptors team. And he really looked it last night. Scotty, as you said, talking about how he succeeded next to Pascal. When I wrote this piece on December 28th, which is "We don't have to worry about Scottie Barnes." And I'll read a quote from it. Quote, "The reason why this isn't particularly worrying to me, I think he can quite comfortably slide back into those actions when the team calls for it, or after he's done stretching his legs trying to create constantly with a live dribble. The Raptors moved away from Pascal Siakam and a middling team, but it was absolutely true that Barnes benefited greatly from Siakam's offensive gravity and high-level playmaking. Here's the thing," or end quote. So Scotty had 6 makes at the rim tonight, last night for listeners. All 6 were assisted, and many of which came as hit ahead looks in transition or high low feeds in the half court. And that used to come in bunches with Pascal Siakam. That used to come in bunches with OG Anunoby. The Raptors actually used to, one of their primary ways to score was through early work. And it wasn't that Scotty had to be like, he has to be a point guard. He has to be all this kind of stuff. He just is managing to score now, like in the same way that OG and Pascal score. No, Scotty's very good at scoring that way. That
Yep.
was his strength. The break guys down, live dribble point guard stuff. Like point guard means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but what Scotty did tonight, bashing and bullying guys for post position, catching high over the top of a fronting defender, working early. Like it's so easy for him to score those baskets. And IQ coming back means that IQ not only, and this can lead into a bunch of different conversations about how good it was to see them together, but IQ, like Darko said before the game to us, the media, was he makes the defense step up. He brings the pickup point higher. We'll talk a little bit later
100%.
about the Raptors running a specific action that is run a lot for Tyrese Halliburton, 77 skip. They ran it 3 times for Immanuel Quickley. Well, they ran it, like, I think 4 times. They scored 3 times. Immanuel Quickley makes defenses meet the Raptors higher up on the floor. That makes Scottie Barnes' early work more dangerous for the hit-ahead pass. There's not help defense. He's all alone on a mismatch probably that he went out and hunted. And on top of that, he doesn't have to carry the ball up the floor anymore, so he can just go bash and beat a guard under the rim. These are free points. This is 33 points on 18 shots. This is almost 80% from the field. This is a brutish, physical forward beating guys
Yeah.
brutally and physically. That was my favorite thing that showed up because Emmanuel Quickly, it took him time to find the flow of the game. His first 6 assists were all in transition. It wasn't like crazy half court creation. It was just like Scotty's up there. And
Yeah.
Scotty
Throw,
has
throw it to him.
yeah, and Scotty has beat the hell out of this guard or smaller wing. And so while Scotty has tried many different avenues to grow, and he will continue growing, and the point guard, change of pace guard stuff, that experiment isn't over for Scotty or the Raptors. He will continue to get attempts at it.
Yeah.
But I mean, tonight looked awesome.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Like I just think from the minute the Raptors have drafted him, he's been unique, and you don't necessarily need this linear way of him being your best player, being the guy that handles the ball every possession of the game. What you want is impact. And if he can provide impact in that way, both defensively and just offering more efficient scoring in general, makes him more dangerous out of his playmaking things. And there's things like even throughout the streak that I liked. I like the mid range stuff. Some of the turnarounds I do like. I probably would like to ask you just in terms of that as a counter. I know he's shooting that at like an extremely high clip right now. I think roughly like 52, 53%. Do you think that's necessarily a counter for him that he possibly could use and like develop as a playmaking option or a hot streak?
Well, this is kind of what we talked about a little bit offline. It's always good to have something like this in your bag. The
Yeah,
best and most unstoppable players are the ones who comfortably operate in the middle of the floor. It's the hardest place on the court to take away because you can't keep everyone extended above the 3-point line. You know, guys are
yeah,
going to get into the middle, and teams are designed to allow players into the middle to defend the rim and keep the ball in front and come back from behind. Like Scotty being comfortable there is really important. I think that he hasn't had a lot of opportunities to play make out of those situations.
yeah,
And I think that how he's gone into like the mid post, less low post stuff for him, but a lot of mid post stuff for him where he's catching or he's using a bully drive to that point and get to his turnaround mid-range jumper. The mid-range jumper, as far as like the efficiency on the shot, has been really high. His
yeah,
post-up stuff overall, per energy, has been like middle of the road as far as like the efficiency of it, and that's because we haven't really seen a bunch of playmaking right now with that aspect of Scotty's game. It seems to me like he's getting reps there.
yeah,
Now, there are good reps and there are bad reps. Like some of the three pointers he was taking over the past however many games, the pickup basketball style that he was playing, like there, and sorry for people who don't like not flowery things said about Scotty. Like, like people are very defensive of him.
yeah,
This is light criticism. It's fine. I wrote the "We're not worried about Scotty Barnes" piece recently. It's okay, everybody. But he was playing like he didn't care. Like he was just
yeah,
out there getting up shots, doing whatever. He was averaging like almost 5 turnovers a game over a 6 game stretch. Like he was just doing whatever. Now, as Darko said, this is development. This is how you get to the next step. It can look better than it did, and you can grow faster than it has at times. It's important to be intentional about what you're doing.
yeah,
The point being, though, no matter what is happening, he's at least moving slowly towards something better, a better version of himself. And that mid post area is absolutely essential to his, ability to create out of middle as a playmaker who isn't like a knifing through the lane guard. He has to
yeah.
do things slower. And I know you've thought about this, so I kind of want to swing it back to you here, actually.
For me, I think it's the spot on the court where he can create and get off the easiest looks. Like even with his 3-point shot, and I know he's gonna shoot better. Throughout his career, he's been hot and cold through stretches of the season. But when he's able to get to the middle of the floor and and score from the mid range, he gets off cleaner looks just simply because that bully drive and the bump you tends to turn the defender the other way, and teams are walling him off. He's getting much easier looks. His touch has always really been really good from
He's
there.
very balanced.
Yes, and the turnarounds, if those are consistent point of his offense, those passing looks are going to be much easier just because teams are going to have to send a guy over. I do think, like you said, it's the one place where he's not necessarily. Those are, you can tell, like those have been repped in from the summer. He's doing the same actions and not necessarily looking at the defense around him or trying to play make from there. I think that's going to obviously improve just because defenses are going to respect it over time, more or less. But I think that is where, if he is going to progress past the 20-point score, that is the step where he becomes that all NBA player. If that touch from there is really good, it opens things, it makes things easier for the bigs around him just from a play finishing perspective. Because currently, when he is walled off, it tends to be a pass out from three, and that doesn't move the defense. If he's able to figure out a way to counter from his bully drives, it takes him to a completely different level, and the gravity of the guys that are orbiting around him just become a lot more dangerous too. So it's something I've wanted for the past couple of years, and I think personally that's what they really need to develop into, because I don't necessarily think he has the, not that he doesn't have the ability, but he has interest in being a post scorer, get the ball 10 to 15 times trying to score from there. His playmaking and both like his ability to finish over people like extend from that short to mid range area. So I'm excited. I hope he gets those looks more and is able to push in that a lot more, like with quickly handling the ball now.
Workout ball a little bit. Like he's getting to his
Yeah.
spots. He's doing what he worked on in the summer. It's like I'm just getting reps in right now.
Yeah.
The really important thing too is that like his shot chart is actually not super changed because a lot of these faders actually just used to be hook shots. Like, Scotty used to be a very like, a lot of hook shots, a lot of push shots, like, all that kind of stuff. Now he's turned them into, and he was quite proficient at it, but he's turned them into faders, which means he's on 2 feet, and this should allow him not just to be a scorer, but it should allow for more playmaking opportunities. And, like, there's that one, pump, bump, and finger roll
Yeah.
he got against Drew Holiday. When you play off of 2, you can have that control to see that, okay, Jason Tatum isn't going to crack down on me. Jason Tatum isn't rotating over. Let me finish at the basket. It's more
Yeah.
controlled. You can read the defense in different parts. And if that was just like a hook shot he's trying to get, you don't have that control. You just have that one thing to go to. So Scotty's inputting and incorporating more control into what he's been doing in the mid range. And that can only be good. How much of
Yeah.
that occupies his offense going forward? It remains to be seen, but it's a great counter for a guy who, even in this game where he scored, he had 6 at the rim finishes in this game, but he also had times where he took a high pick and roll and dribbled in and then took an ISO and like bumped and got to 14 feet and hit a fader. Like, you don't want that to be the whole shot chart, the whole shot diet,
Yeah.
but that's a perfectly fine counter. It can be a run stopper, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything else you're thinking about or any other Scotty adjacent stuff that's on your mind?
It's like just a point, like the defense again, like a as much as like I've been like team like fire home, this is the perfect like rebuild. Like the defense, like the last like week or so, like obviously like unacceptable. It's been awful. Some of the worst defense we've seen in quite a while. The 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 level of like effort that they showed today is like really encouraging. Just I think just having Quickly and Grady like back in the lineup just felt like we can compete again. And his defense, like when he's on, he can make an all NBA team like defensively. And the
Yeah.
impact that he does have. The Raptors look like when he first came back from the first injury that they turned around their defense. They're going to be a middling defense. I'm
Funny sentence, They've turned it around.
the
They can be
17th.
middling. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm we've talked about it multiple pods. Like I've really wanted to know if Grady and IQ can be okay defensively. And today, like, it was fine because they hit shots. They're able to get into their set defense. And
Also
a
the
big part
net.
of that, yeah, they play. They play the Brooklyn Nets. That's a big caveat. But just like his ability to roam and blow up at the drive at to blow up like closeouts or shots at the rim just changes everything.
Handoffs, all kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
He blows up so many actions and it makes things significantly easier for the guys like around him. So like whether they are able to play together will say a lot for like whether they'll both be on the team in the future together. But like Scotty is making things a lot easier. So I'm hoping that continues.
Yeah. The final thing on Scotty is what you said, like impact. The thing is, whether Scotty is, and I've complained about this conversation in the past, and the Celtics just won a championship without any single player
Oh
who
Jesus.
no, 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 without any single player who, like, we talked about it last episode, Tatum
He
is
didn't he
not
didn't
in the
he didn't
MVP talks.
yeah, he didn't play well in the finals.
The Celtics said, "We don't care what the hell your number 1, number 1, number 1, like, all that stuff
Yeah.
is." They're like, "We just want damn good players who provide a lot of impact." Scotty, whether he's the one, like you can be disappointed with Scotty's foray into like heliocentric stuff,
Yeah.
and you can be like, "Oh, he's really not creating much." That's fine. Criticism is warranted for like this kind of stuff. As long as it's constructive, that's fine. But what Scotty will never be, ever, like for a really long time, is a bad player, and he
Yeah.
can immediately just slouch back into a major impactful, uber impressive player if he's just a play finisher, a defensive demon, and a guy who gets on the glass. Like he just slumps back into that, even if he's not having a good creation game. And whether
Yeah.
he's the number one, like, does that mean something for the Raptors team building into the future? Yes. But for Scotty, the player, he always, like, he's just going to bring it. He can fit on whatever team you want going forward because he'll just bring that. So the, like hand wringing about like who he might be, what that is, like you can question the level of development, but
Yeah.
he's going to fit on if there is like a championship team or a high level team in the future. Like he just fits there.
Yeah. He's always been a guy that impacts the game in like a significant way just because he's able to pass, he plays defense, and even if he isn't necessarily like your heliocentric scorer, he's gonna be the guy that finishes off a lot of those plays. And you could say that that's Bam Adebayo, for example, who plays in a similar fashion. I think like him necessarily like being the number one guy and number one scorer isn't necessarily going to like deter whether you invest in him or invest in the team. You
Yep.
you want someone that wins minutes, and he's always been a guy that does that.
He'll be a max player. Like
Yeah,
that's why I wrote in the piece that I wrote is like whether he's a max player or not, I think is like already decided. He showed you. Like
yeah,
he played a good chunk of a season where you looked at and said, "Man, if this is a good team, like you could make an all NBA team." And
yeah,
yes, there's like cap and team building stuff where you say like, "Well, however many players get paid a max contract, but like only 7 give you that super super duper value, like whatever." Sometimes you have future Hall of Famers, sometimes you have like fringe Hall of Famers. Sometimes you have one of the best players ever. But like
yeah.
all those guys deserve max contracts. Chris Middleton's got the max for like however many years of his life, and he won a chip. Like
Tobias
these,
Harris got a max.
there you go. And Scotty Barnes will give you more value than both of those guys. I'm like
Yeah,
concretely sure. Let's talk about the other guy who isn't on a max but got paid a lot of money and came back into this game, provided 21 and 15 in short order. Uh, Adam asked Darko about IQ's minutes restriction because before the game,
yeah.
Darko said he'd have a minutes restriction, and then he played 32 minutes and 7 seconds. It was my joke that the minutes restriction maybe was 32 minutes and 8 seconds. I don't know, but but Darko was like, I can't share with you what the minutes restriction was. But IQ came back in. He played awesome basketball. Let's start there. Your thoughts on IQ?
It's so refreshing to have an NBA level point guard on the team. It
Yeah.
it's been rough. Like his shooting gravity, like when he's on, just creates makes everything significantly easier. You have to respect when he's a screener. You have to respect when he's coming off a split action. just because of the level of shooter that he is, and it makes things easier for like we pointed for Sky to be a play finisher. It allows Ochai to get a few opportunities as a dunker and a play finisher that he probably wouldn't in other possessions, and to create easier opportunities. The Raptors have kind of tried to use both Jakob and Scotty grabbing the ball from the mid post and hoping the defense will actually like rotate based on setting screens and creating actions that get guys moving. When you don't have the requisite shooting, guys don't move. And Grady's typically been the only guy that's been able to offer some level of shooting gravity. So to have two guys on the floor like this makes things a lot easier. I think like his driving was, although like he wasn't necessarily finishing the floater, I'm praying is gonna come back to normal. But he was getting to the middle of the floor, snaking pick and rolls, and at least was getting to the spots that you want to see. And with play finishers like Jakob, Scotty there, he's gonna have opportunities to like always be at a point where like he's gonna get 10 assists like fairly easy. If
Yep.
you told me I think he had 14 assists today,
15.
50, it did not feel that way just because the Raptors have so many really good guys. They got in transition. They create actions where guys get downhill like fairly easily. And we saw Jamal Shed can get 10 assists in a game. So like that part
Anybody
I'm not
can get 10 assists on this team, man.
the
Like,
Ponzi scheme.
anybody you join the Raptors, you get a decent amount of the ball. You just gotta be like, "I'm gonna rebound tonight," and you could end up with a triple double. Like, there's a reason that RJ
Yeah.
Barrett was like, "Damn, I can't get over the hump," and he's like, "Damn, I just had 25, 14, and 18. How did that happen?" You know?
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing for me is we debated like aggression from three, just because that opens up the defense significant. Today he shot 7. I want 10, but 7 to 9, I'm not complaining at. For me, efficiency doesn't matter on that standpoint, just because defenses will respect his jumper. So I want him running off split actions, hitting threes, taking attempts from there, taking logo threes, just because he's shown throughout his career that he's that level of shooter. It's a matter of him having that aggression to get to the point where a team throws a trap on you. That Scotty's rolling downhill. That's the future of this team, and Grady spotting up. It makes things significantly easier and makes a much harder equation for defenses overall. So like so far so good. Like this is a plus game for his first game being back, and my smile never waned through the losing streak. But but I was a week from frowning. I was skipping around skipping around the house. Super happy to have him back.
Yeah, that was a huge and really fun play was when they went under, he was sitting just below the logo, pull, bang, 15-2 run for the Raptors, they're up 20. The game was like, what, a 5-point game,
Yeah,
and they just, like, took off. Like, really, really impressive run of basketball, and he like, IQ had his fingertips all over this game. In the first half, it wasn't, like, that crazy. Almost the
yeah,
first 6 assists he had, as I mentioned earlier, came in transition. And not like, "Oh, genius transition boy," like, he's made something out of nothing. Like, no, the ball was in his hands, a guy came open, a shot went in. Like, just the plays that
yeah,
most, like, 80% of ball handlers will make. But here's the thing, as the game went on, 6 out of 8. I went like, well, 6 or 8 between there because the high-low feeds, some people consider that like more so the guy who's doing the work to get the positioning. Some people think like the feathery touch. There's a couple passes. You can decide if that's an advantage assist or not, but like either 6 out of 9 or 8 out of 9 of his half court assists in my mind, when I went back and watched them, were advantage assists. And that means that he's doing the bulk of the creation. He's putting really good looks in people's hands. I'll tell you this much. That was not the case last year. It was a lot more assist farmy for IQ last year, where like if he would get like big balloon assist games, but it looked more like the 6 transition assists than it did him really cutting through the middle of the defense, finding and creating these great looks for guys. But he did an unbelievable job as a creator, particularly in the second half of this game. It looked so good. And that willingness to let it fly, as you say, 7 attempts, you got to bump those numbers up. That's,
yeah.
amateur in this racket, the Matthew McConaughey thing, the whatever it is. That's that's coming, hopefully. But IQ was like almost note perfect in this game.
Yeah.
And like the defense, well enough. He still has to like that. You talked about it. The floater has to be there to some degree. The at the rim stuff has to come around and should be a larger part of his game. I think he was 4 of 9 inside the arc tonight, if I had to guess. Uh, we have to see that more so going forward because not every team is the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
But the clinical and surgical way in which he kind of divvied up where the Nets were on the court, found his way to advantages, and then pawned that off to his teammates. It was really, really nice. I also want to address, like, I mentioned that he used this. The Raptors started using the same play as Halliburton, and the Pacers, they've ran it for. I think Caitlin said they've been running it for about a year. In the podcast that Caitlin and I
Yeah.
did, we broke down this play, but it's like you fake as if you're doing a double drag, then you throw ahead a skip pass over the top of the first screener, and then you catch a handoff. Or if somebody tries to shoot the gap, you back cut down the middle of the court. Now, the big thing here is that for bigger 6'5" ish guards who aren't the most dynamic dribblers, which applies to Hallie and
Yeah.
Quickly, how do you make value out of your shooting and your movement if you're not a Kyrie or a Curry
Yeah.
who can like wiggle with the most creative dribble? You don't use the basketball. Throw it ahead, sprint into space. That's exactly what Quickly was able to do. S clipped the play, put it on Twitter. Everybody started commenting on it. It's a great play. Credit to S for picking up on it. The throw ahead, knifed back through the middle of the lane. The defense had to step up to him as he was coming down. He went to the corner. Gradey hit a three. This is everything melding together because IQ means higher pickup points. That means the defense has more space to cover. That means you get to introduce new concepts and offensive packages. Darko was obviously very excited to run some of these plays. The Raptors aren't running these plays without IQ
Yeah.
because Gradey is not going to be like running double drags and doing all that kind of stuff. And running that play with Scottie just makes no sense. And the Raptors ran 3 variations of it and scored on all 3. Some of it required more dribbling from IQ. Some of it required less. Some of it required his own scoring. Some of it required scoring from others. But the Raptors got to bring a brand new package into their offense, score out of it. And it's because IQ, not only in this game, was he significantly better than when he came back from the last injury where the ball was sticking. He got off the ball quick. He made very fast decisions. He kept the ball moving. He let the team work. And that's how Gradey was able to punch in with like 22 of his own points. That's how Ochai was able to get 14. That's how Jakob quietly got 12. And that there was still room for Jacoby's 11, Jamal's 7, Kelly's 7, 33 from Scottie, 22 from, or 21 from Immanuel. Like, they scored the basketball because they were quick. They made
Yeah.
shots and they have to keep making shots. They're not always going to shoot as good from 3 as they did, tonight. But it was just like,
Thank God.
things make sense. Things made sense.
Yeah. Man, just it's just nice to just see NBA players on the court again. Like the last couple of games, like probably like the lowest point of the season easily, just from they didn't have the requisite skill to score the basketball. You saw it every time they went up the floor. And having an actual like point guard on the floor that can hit shots, that can get into the lane and allow guys to scale up to what their best they're used in the most correct ways it's super positive. Like Grady was used. Oh Jesus. Grady was able to, and we've talked about this a lot, like scale up in a way that makes him more efficient, really puts defenses in a really hard position because those spot up opportunities, I when he has a spot up, I assume is going in. It's those
So
feel like layups.
I asked Darko about this tonight, and Darko, I was like, what did you think of how Grady fit in? And he was like, well, Grady got spot up attempts. It's been a
Yeah.
while since he's gotten those. He's had very difficult shots, and this just makes his shot diet way easier.
He those spot up attempts, he's shooting them at a super high clip. Defenses really have to overreact. And if you have a guard like Quickly that is forcing guys to rotate, it's such a hard decision for teams. And when they do close out aggressively on Grady, you saw today he's able to little
Oh, that. Oh,
Oh,
buddy,
it
that
got some
finger
stats out
roll.
of me. Just gorgeous. Like, yeah, he might be like the fact that he's like looking like a finishing like prodigy like a year plus after his career or after school is insane. And he's attacking closeouts with like so much intentionality and is able to score out of those positions. The playmaking isn't there. I'm still like fairly high on that standpoint, but guys are just scaling up in a really good way, and it's good to see that this team has talents. They can be playing. Here we come.
Yeah, he's almost 90th percentile in the NBA per synergy in spot up play types. Like when Gradey gets put in a strong position to succeed, he's succeeding a really, really high percentage of the time. And that incorporates, as we've talked about on this podcast, as I've done, a piece on and a video essay on, Gradey is a very unique driver who gets to the free throw line and he gets all the way to the rim. And there's lots of stuff that gets into that. We'll talk more about that, and we'll talk about all the bad stuff that we've been seeing too, because we can't just ignore what happened while we were away.
11 else.
Yeah, yeah. But we can't ignore this either. That this podcast is sponsored by Sober Carpenter. Craft beer reimagined, people. This year, 2025, actually. Sober Carpenter is celebrating 5 years of brewing award-winning non-alcoholic craft beer, from hoppy IPAs to rich Irish Reds. They've got the flavor without the buzz. You can find Sober Carpenter at Sobeys, Loblaws, Whole Foods, Metro, Farm Boy, or delivered straight to your door at sobercarpenter.com. Cheers to 5 years of staying true to the craft. Sober Carpenter, crafted for those who sip differently. Thank you. I actually had people message me that they were buying Sober Carpenter. Awesome. If you'd
Thank you.
like to try it out yourself, you can click the link in our bio via the podcast, via the article, or via the YouTube video, all that good stuff. Okay. Gradey Dick. Not only is he getting an opportunity to get some easier shots, but he put up what, 18, 17 shots in this game. Were you surprised that we got 17 from Gradey, 16 from Quickley, 18 from Scottie? Like that's a pretty, like Gradey is, he doesn't have nearly the cachet that Immanuel and Scottie have, you know what I mean? And of course free throws dictate some like usage, but Scottie only took 2 free throws. Immanuel only took 4. Gradey took 0, which is a little bit odd for him. But were you
Yeah.
surprised at the way that the shot usage kind of was divvied out in this game?
It's very surprising. I think just in general, for this is just like trauma of not having Emmanuel quickly the last couple months. Just like the level of pace they play with when Scotty's not the main distributor. It allowed them to get a lot more shots. It allowed them to generate threes from other people, that which led to them just shooting the ball more. But I think just like again, like he's so comfortable attacking closeouts, and the fact that the Raptors were able to get to the middle of the floor like pretty easily within this game, again, Brooklyn Nets, just like bodes well to like imagining what Gradey looks like when the team is actually like really good. He's able to step up and roll and be that second side shot creator at times. He's able to spot up and create also. And I think just like having him on the other side of the floor is just such a dangerous weapon, that it's something that teams have to respect. And it makes sense that he was putting up the shots that he was, because he's also just such a great finisher in transition, which is stunning to be honest. So even when RJ comes back, like he has to be a factor within the offense. Like the way the Raptors work and are able to get those him, RJ, and Scotty downhill is the fact that they have these orbiting guys that are flamethrowers from three. It needs to be tapped into. It needs to be a focal point within the offense, because the way that Brooklyn reacted to him having the ball shows that his rep as a shooter is known in the league and is being respected. So those are easy opportunities for the Raptors to score, and hopefully his playmaking gets to a point where that also turns into not necessarily him like throwing himself at the defender, but also utilizing the guys around him.
It should be like, also guys have to respond a little bit. Like Jakob, they blitzed Gradey Jakob ball screen, an empty side one, something we saw him play make out of a ton at Kansas, and he
Yeah.
squirted the bounce pass through, and Jakob just wasn't ready for
Yeah.
it. It rolled out of bounds. Like that's That's a nice little play. When he hit Ochai in the corner for 3 after pumping, leaning around, shooting the ball into the corner, like that's you can see there's like a creativity as a passer there. It's just
Mhm.
that he has to be a stronger on-ball player overall. Like that was the thing with Scottie early on too, right? Is like and Scottie having when he's alone as the creator, like Scottie struggled more as like the fulcrum offensively,
Yeah.
just the guy than RJ did. And like to me and to most people who watch, like Scottie is the better player than RJ. And like for me, that's unquestionable. I know some people disagree. Shannon, I know watches every podcast. I know he disagree with me, but we're okay with disagreeing, Shannon. I know you still got love for the podcast, but this it's like some guys really struggle with that raw creation, and Gradey has to get better at that before he can access his playmaking and passing. Like a lot of
Mhm.
stuff has to transport you into a playmaking opportunity. And what Gradey is getting transported into early right now is a lot of scoring opportunities. He's taking those in stride, and I'm really interested to see how he's able to take scoring opportunities and eventually convert those into playmaking opportunities and convert that into like a holistic great offensive approach. That to me seems like it's going to come objectively. That is
Yeah.
something I think comes around. I really hope that the Raptors they play better against. Like I hope they play 2 good games against Orlando and Milwaukee. Like give us 2 out of 3 for this,
Yeah.
Orlando Milwaukee situation and New York because man, I don't want to come back here and just say all the good things we said are just dumb little, it was the Brooklyn Nets. Like, can you imagine everything
Yeah.
falls apart? Nasty business that would be, man.
Imagine if they lost today. How depressing this would be right now. It'd be rough.
Dude, I was so the idea of if I had to come home like from being at the arena and it's like almost 1 a.m. here now and
Yeah.
just talk about, well, that's 12 in a row, guys, and everything
Keep
looks
keep
bad.
the faith.
Yeah. Like, jeez, dude, that's tough. Like, everyone sees it.
Yeah.
Like less people listen to things when the team sucks. I am like I played baseball growing up. I know enough about baseball, but I don't know what makes like a high level team good. I'm a fan of the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
So are you. When the Blue Jays suck, my listenership fades a lot. When the Blue
Yeah.
Jays are good, Blue Jays Talk Plus with Blake Murphy, I'm in there almost every day. Oh, wow, this is also interesting. When they suck, nothing's interesting. They suck. And the Raptors, I'm glad we got something, baby. Oh, I mean, no
Oh.
one believes in you. Nobody. Nobody,
Oh.
Oh, what are you prepared to do about it?
I think one thing that was actually interesting from the game is that when the team got healthy, I was just wondering, like, how many minutes is Jacoby gonna get? Like, what positions are they gonna put him in now?
With
There
a
was a
sprained finger, too.
Yeah, there was a weird lineup that they played today where it's just the bench and he's their primary focal point and of the offense. I'm pretty surprised like how comfortable he is like actually dribbling the ball. That's not something you necessarily saw in Baylor.
He
How
put it down a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, which is surprising. Like, how do you think he fits into the equation once they're healthy? Because once RJ's back, like this is like the RJ and Bruce, like this is the team. Is he? Do you think he is able to run those lineups necessarily like with the bench, or do you have him just being like a focal point, spot up opportunities, ideally operating as like a secondary version of Grady?
Yeah, he has to be opportunistic with his dribbles.
Yeah,
Like I know he put the ball down, but
yeah,
mm-mm. Yeah, like when he had it up top and it's like, okay, Jacoby, like create something. Like I loved watching Jacoby. I have loved over the course of the season watching Jacoby attack closeouts, like knife into unique spots, find a mid-range pull up, but he's starting past his guy's hips with a pump fake. I loved watching, tonight him come off a wide pin, do the shoulder check, pull up for 3 because he was clear. Like that's savvy stuff. But I didn't love him just staring down the barrel of the gun.
yeah.
Like I'm gonna try and wiggle and create. He didn't get by anybody and not close. That kind of stuff. I know like opportunities and reps are important, but it seems very clear to me that that stuff starts in the summer. And I actually talked to Darko about that before the game a little bit too,
Hmm.
where he was saying like Gradey, we knew what was going to happen. He just had to like go put the work in and become the player that he's being. And I asked, like, who do you think the next, like, what do you think the next thing is like that? And he was talking about how Jacoby, like, he's so excited for Jacoby's upcoming summer. That Jacoby's
Mm,
really, there's so much that you can see his game could grow, that he'll really be able to take advantage of the weight training, of the skill training, all that kind of stuff. So I imagine year 2 for Jacoby is going to be very expansive, the same way it was for has been for Gradey, and that's Darko also said as much. So that's really exciting from Jacoby. But for right now, opportunistic works pretty well, I think.
yeah, that makes sense, and it's just like one of those things. Like within a rebuild, you're gonna see like weird lineups where let's see what it looks like when he has to like dribble the ball and get those opportunities. Like the lineup wasn't like very good, but I've just we touched on it last week, I believe, but just I think he's earned minutes and he has to play. I don't necessarily think like Bruce, Boucher, like Olenek necessarily need to play. Like he's at a point where like you need to chalk in 15 minutes for him, regardless of how he plays, just because one adds more shooting and more gravity in that way. Like his shooting will, I think, even out to about average once the season's over,
Over the
most
course,
likely.
probably, yeah. And like to your point, man, like, yeah, they beat the Nets. Nobody get it twisted. This team is losing games, man.
Yeah,
And like under no circumstance, because Kelly's here another year after this one. Chris isn't. Brown isn't.
yeah,
If you prioritize those guys over like Jacoby, maybe, like some confidence in him, the happiness to get out there and try things, to put his body through it so that like he hits the wall, understands what that is, comes back. Like there's so much he can learn with the minutes he gets this year, and also not only just going through a summer of work, but hitting the wall and realizing where your deficiencies are,
yeah,
and then being able to go into the summer knowing all that. They have to
yeah,
get as much information as possible on Jacoby. And under no circumstance do I think that like Bruce and Kelly and Chris should be prioritized over him. That would
yeah,
be to me crazy. Uh I will say next week we'll do a larger coaching conversation. I talked to Jordi Fernandez today. A lot of people were, saying like, well, the Raptors could add Jordi, and I'll tell you what, as a handsome, bald man, Jordy and I were in an elite club. Okay. And I like no two ways about it. I wanted Jordy to get hired by the Raptors. That was who you could go back and watch the coverage. That was who I wanted them to hire. And then it was Darko. And obviously, I like Darko. I've advocated for Darko. And don't be so weird and suggest like me, part of a media cabal. No, I like what Darko's done. I've explained my process. We can disagree, and if I'm wrong,
yeah.
I'm wrong. But you don't have to attribute malicious cabal stuff to it. I'm not on the take, people. I just
You said-
like,
Imagine we were on the payroll. That would
dude,
I
I'd love to be on the payroll.
was about to
I'm in a
say we could
base.
cook it.
The Raptors. I'm on the payroll, and I'm in a basement in Rexdale. I met someone on New Year's Eve, and I told them like, "Oh, I live in Rexdale." The shock on their faces, man. Just regardless, all this to say, I put out that tweet asking what people wanted to see from Darko or thought another coach could do better than Darko, not to debate it, but just so I knew where the fan
Yeah,
base was. There was like 50 responses, a lot of overlap, some unique insights. I made sure to talk to Darko today and Jordy today about coaching specifically. I'm gathering up some insights and stuff like that so I can have a more informed, larger conversation. I gave out a little tidbit. I tweeted out one thing that Jordy said, but like we'll have that conversation in the future personally. And I'll give you, this isn't what
yeah,
I want. This isn't my, this isn't like me thinking it's a good or bad decision. I'll say this. I do not think Darko's job is remotely in jeopardy, like remotely. You look at that staff, unless you think Jama is like next up. Pat Delaney has been an assistant coach on losing teams for many years. Jama has some winning bona fides, but like, do Charles, like I, they're letting Darko grow and try with this
yeah,
team. This team it wasn't designed to win, which is what they talked about at the start. And I understand it's been extremely ugly.
Yeah,
And again, I'll say, I don't think they should fire Darko. I'm not of that opinion. I don't think Darko is a bad coach, and it's totally okay for people to
yeah,
disagree. However, I also don't think that they will. When it was Nick Nurse, like Michael Grange and I did a podcast together, I said that I thought they were going to fire Nurse. Grange said that he thought they wouldn't. I thought, and I also said, I thought that Nick's tactics with the Raptors were really strong, but that he lost the locker room, and that's why he wasn't going to be with the team. It can be nuanced. Like coaches can do
yeah,
some things well, other things bad. The Raptors were going through a thing where they couldn't stomach good tactics for a lost locker room or distaste.
yeah.
Now, are the Raptors perhaps more willing to stomach like growing pains with a coach for a coach that the players really like? That's quite possible. Like you look at the what's happening with the team. All this to say, this is a lot of like lead up to a conversation we're not going to have today. Oh, that's that's really funny. But yeah, that's like
Yeah.
the short version of the coach conversation. Um, do you have any thoughts on it? Just as like a quick sum up.
What did people expect? He was not good. I think for me, like when a coach is hired, like are they executing on the things that like we wanted to see and like they're like calling cards. Like with Darko, player development, it was like the biggest thing that was talked about him. And I think like he's hit that out of the park. You've seen a guy that the his first pick, like necessarily in his era of being a coach, has made incredible strides within 1 year of being with him and their program and all the things that they do. The rookies that they have made they've gotten he's gotten a lot out of them within their first year together. You're seeing positive strides from your young guys, and that's what you want to see from a coach
Well,
that's focused on
can
player
can I
development.
also can I also say something? Scottie's second year in the NBA was not well received.
Yeah, that is a fact.
He got a lot of crap, like a lot.
Yeah,
And Scottie's All-Star season, where he was used in a lot of unique ways and suddenly had like the best season of his career and made people readjust the ceiling they thought of Scottie. Who was the coach? Who
that is a fact. That is just
I
merely a fact.
like there's some things that are like I know people want to hear more critiques of Darko. And once we have like a good run of play where I'm looking at what the Raptors do poorly and do well, I'll have more critiques of Darko. It's
Yeah,
easy to find critiques of this team, but like a team turns the ball over 31 times. Like, and here's the thing. I always look at who's on the court before I look at who's off of it.
it's
Like
it's
I
tough. Like
you can't go any other way, man.
you're
Trey tried
watching
to
this.
coach us at Brody League. He didn't move an inch.
Oh my god. There's like one of these days where like we just have to talk about the Brody story for like 10-15 minutes. But you watch the Boston game and you see that like Jamal Shed is going against Derek White, and Derek White could possibly be the best player on the court for the Raptors if he was there. It's just a talent deficit. I think like looking at the Nurse era, I felt like offensively the Raptors had regressed in a way. They were playing in the way that most of the poor offenses in the NBA were playing. Heavy isolation, not focused on necessarily shooting and creating opportunities from there. They were putting their guys in difficult spots, and they had guys that were able to score in some isolation situations. And I think that's one of the reasons why they pivoted to a guy like Darko. They pass the ball really well. They're playing in ways where most of the great offenses in the league are playing. So I think from a tactic standpoint, you have someone that gets it and is following the way of the future of the NBA. So like from what I was expecting, he's hit everything in strides. And if MLS Lee wants to pay me, you know,
Yeah,
but
that's funny.
but he's doing what I expected. I think the first issue to clear up is talent. And once talent is there, over the Raptors win the lottery. Once talent is there, you can probably evaluate whether he's the guy that's going to influence winning. But in terms of is he going to help guys become better? I think that's like unequivocally yes. Like that's all we've seen right now is every guy that's come like through here or with him has improved in some way. Maybe not Gary Trent Jr., but everyone
Well, that's
else
because Gary
improves.
Gary doesn't play that style is the thing.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, and another thing too that I'll just say, like, I know that people have questions about this offense, but I hope that everybody kind of took in how slow and tough it was for the Raptors to create offense when they tried to rely on dribble creation. The Raptors
Oof.
don't have it, so they have to be a team that creates with the pass. That creates more turnovers. They're also not that great. Um, if this sounds like excuses to you, I would say that this is contextual analysis.
Yeah.
However, again, if you enjoy listening to the podcast and maybe we disagree about like the efficacy of the coach who should be coaching, that's okay. I meet so many people when we talk basketball, people I disagree with. It doesn't have to be all that. It doesn't have to be nasty business. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether Darko is here after year 3 or
Yeah.
midway through year 3. This season, he's here. How they do going forward and like what becomes identity, all that kind of stuff, very interesting. That's where he gets to make his mark.
Yeah. 100%. Like once they have like a decent team, I'm assuming next year you're expecting them to take some sort of step. That's Scotty's first year on his max deal. Ideally, you've secured another top 10 picks, which should add like a jolt of talent, necessarily jolt of talent within the offense and the team overall. And that's Grady year 3, which is usually when someone takes that large step to whether that all-star, high-level role player, so on and so forth. So for me, it's give it another year and see where you're at there.
Yeah, see what becomes of this team, honestly,
Yeah.
because like, yeah, Grady year 3, Jacoby year 2, they will have like a bit of like they might have an opportunity to sign. The Raptors next year should be really intriguing. As far as this year, in the same reason you and I, when we were having the De'Aaron Fox conversation, I was like, I wouldn't do the trade because I'm resigned to seeing what becomes of these
Mm,
players and the players that the Raptors invest their draft capital in
mm,
the future. That's where I'm at with it. We can probably leave it all here, yeah? Does that feel like a
yeah.
podcast to you?
Quality.
I gotta edit this whole daggone thing, man. Oh, gotta
Oh,
edit. It's gonna be a late night.
man.
I'm gonna be up till like 4 AM.
Jesus. Man.
That's well, I hope
The
you have a
powers
good
that
sleep. You gonna say the powers that be?
yeah.
That's funny. Thank you so much to everybody for listening, and especially for liking, commenting, and subscribing. We very much appreciate it. We're trying to grow this damn podcast, and the biggest thing we could possibly have it be. Yeah. All right. From myself and Trevon, I guess anything you want to say, Trey? You gotta say goodbye or something?
Sober carpenter apple cider. Had
You
it during
did. You
Christmas.
drank it on Christmas. That's true.
It was delectable. It was delicious. I suggest it to any living being on the planet.
That's I've never heard this is a marketing whiz over here. He's making sure he captures every demographic. Someone's in a coma, living being, they can buy sober carpenter, you know? Honestly, could a minor drink non-alcoholic beer?
Like it is. I don't know,
I've
but
never
I
considered that before. I've
there's no idea.
never thought of that because it's non-alcoholic,
It's just apple
but
cider.
yeah, the apple cider, yes. But, like, it would feel a little weird if you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's non-alcoholic, son." You know, like, you know what I mean? Anyway, anyway, bye, everybody. Thanks for listening. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, from myself and Trevon, have a blessed day and goodbye.